Oh, Marci, I'm still wiping away the tears on this one. I was not expecting this story from this beautiful woman, so I have to say I was a little taken off guard by her story. But everyone, please tune in and listen to this. It's very important.
Yeah, it's we spoke with Hope Rose, and her story is very difficult and very challenging around basically losing custody of her son and so much more. Trigger warning, this is some real emotional stuff, especially for moms, especially for anyone who's been through the family court system and been traumatized by it, which seems to be a lot of people. So take care of yourself and buckle up. This is the world right now. It's really, really challenging, and you're not alone. So
yeah, take good care.
The world is a lot right now. Are you feeling it? We all need new tools to help us walk through the chaos with grace, ease, and compassion for each other and for ourselves. In this podcast, you'll hear from parents, educators, and other experts who can bring perspective to the monumental job of parenting. It's time to level up and be warriors for our kids and our communities. This is the Warrior Parent Podcast. I'm Marci Mitchell.
And I'm Debbie DeMano. As parents, we understand that it really does take a village to raise our kids. We hope that this podcast serves to create and support that community for you. Join us as we discuss and practice our core tools, which are proven mind-body techniques that can be used by anyone to improve your life on a daily basis.
welcome back to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're grateful that you're joining us, and we're excited for our guest today. Her name is Hope Rose, and I'm just going to read a little bit of her words about how she got to be where she is today. So in her words, sometimes life calls us to a purpose we never expected. That's exactly what birthed Hope Rose, a movement inspired by founder Hope Rose's own extreme loss and grief, believing that a life-altering event this big serves as a divine purpose. She's lending her voice to share with others that their story can be transformed into a beautiful masterpiece. Rising from the ashes can be beautiful, but is oftentimes lonely. The vision is to bring Hope Rose to every soul that is in desire of support, guidance, and a way to transform their ashes into alchemy. Hope Rose's background in several decades of entrepreneurship is the perfect foundation for this next endeavor. She's a previously sponsored ultra endurance athlete, whoop whoop, a self-published author of the health and wellness book, and featured in many publications such as the NBC Nightly News, The Today Show. She's excited to birth this next chapter in her life and to serve and support as many souls as possible, which sounds just amazing and needed right now. So welcome so much, Hope Rose, to the Warrior Parent Podcast. We're really glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Wow. What a beautiful name. Just want to say like that is, that's like a rising strong sort of,
Yes.
right? I don't know if you're
Speaks
Brene
volumes.
Brown girl, but that's how Marci and I met with the Rising Strong. That's how we formed this company. So we know what that feels like to go through a dark place and to come out on the other side and to find some purpose work. With that, I know you've spoken a little bit about a difficult time and then some challenges you've been through in your life, and that has sparked you to start a different career, a different life. So if you wouldn't mind sharing just a little bit of how you got here, I'd love that, especially the endurance athlete part. Like that's pretty
Very
cool. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, people are always very curious on like what is an ultra endurance athlete? Like they've heard of 5Ks and like marathons. Like
Yeah.
1% of the world's population, runs a marathon. The quick 411 on ultra endurance athlete is ultra running, and the four classic distances are 50K. So for us Americans, that's 31 some miles, and then a 50 miler, 100K, which is like 62 miles, I believe. And then the fourth classic distance is the 100 miler. Those are the four kind of classic distances. And then there's like 48 hours of running, like a week, like there's the distances can go on, but those are the four main ones. And so, yeah, I've run 14 50 milers, and they're run all at one time, like without stopping. You're always moving. I
Right.
really, I have not run a 50 miler in quite some time, but I really enjoyed that distance. And then I've also started and completed 200 milers and two other 100 milers, which I have not finished. So I guess 400s.
Wow.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that kind
Mind
of
blown.
the mindset that I have to get through, the current chapter that I'm going through, the ultra running really helped me kind of have that mindset foundation for
Yeah.
what I'm currently going through. So I'm
Right.
very
Right.
grateful for that.
Yeah.
And even just to embark on ultra running, gosh, I've been in the ultra running space for 16 years now.
Mhm.
Wow.
So
Wow.
quite some
Wow.
time.
Wow.
And even
Yeah.
to kind of move into that, it, takes a certain individual. And
Yeah.
For
usually
sure.
somebody that's kind of like, in that space has overcome a lot, whether it's
Yes.
childhood abuse, trauma, like it's a very unique individual to kind of, do those distances
Yeah.
over and over. Maybe an individual will do it like once and say, I'm good. But to keep going
Yes.
back, there's just something in that
For
person's,
more torture. Yes.
yeah, more
Yes.
torture. Tells you a lot about the person.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, Hope
Wow.
Rose is this name was channeled to me through Source, God, Universe 3 years ago. Right before, kind of in the middle of the chapter I'm currently walking. And it was such a divine name that was like given to me. And so now I kind of channel as Hope Rose. And it's really interesting. Rose is the highest frequency flower, like
Flower.
in the
Yes.
flower.
I
So
know
I didn't
that.
even, I
Yes.
didn't, there's so
Yeah.
many things that have come to me after I've, kind of channeled like Hope Rose. They're like, this is the rose. This is the hope. It's been so interesting.
Yeah.
And,
Mm.
when the name was given to me, I really didn't know what to like what was the purpose
Mm-hmm.
until I guess it was over a year ago. Somebody was like, it's like a movement. And I was like, oh, of course it is. Why didn't I
Yeah.
think of that sooner? But I was
Right.
still kind of just, triage, just wrapped up in, and I'll get into the kind of the grief and the trauma that I've been going through. And so, yeah, it's a movement really to inspire anybody who's walking through a dark time. It can be super
Mhm.
dark or just minor. Like we all experience loss and heartbreak, whether it's romantic or in a family setting or,
Yes.
business or just, death of dreams, death of the life that you thought you wanted. And I did a
Yeah.
podcast of, we live the life that we've been given, not the life we've wanted. And there's a grief
So
and a
true.
loss in that.
Mhm.
Yes.
Like I would have never pictured I'm sitting, on the other side of the screen sharing my story with you today. I
Yeah.
never would have pictured that.
Yeah.
And yet this is the story that I've been given. How can I be a good steward of that?
Yeah.
And so like the Hope Rose is, it's a multifaceted, multidimensional movement and it's still developing. It's not, set in stone
Yeah.
as spiritual things are. But yeah, the life we've been given,
Yeah.
that's a
In Marci's
really
in Marci's world, I don't want to interrupt you, but when Marci and my world, we believe that we chose these journeys. We chose to walk into these human suits, and this is the journey. This is what we signed up for. So we believe a little bit of twist on that. But when things get hard, we go like, yeah, that's what I signed up for. Like I gotta keep doing it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think society is really steeped, like like in childhood, like if they watch a lot of like Disney movies, maybe it's like the romantics. You're gonna like you go to school, you go to college, you get the white picket fence, you have the the two
Yes.
kids and 1.5 dogs and maybe a second house if you're really lucky, and life is great. And we don't have this part taught in our society at a young age of like, oh, your soul came here to walk this path. It's not going to be like what is portrayed in society. And I think that's what
Yes.
so many people get tripped up on, of like,
Mhm.
oh, I was told a completely different script for
Yeah.
Yes.
22 years, and then at age
Yeah.
30, 35, 50, whatever it is, I am living a completely different life. And that's very disorienting for somebody that they followed, like the protocol.
Yeah.
They did all the
Right.
Yeah.
Did
right
what you're
things.
supposed to do. Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so,
Well, and it for some people it's just intolerable. Like they think, "Oh my God, well this is the end of the world," because they have no experience or have never understood that, it's okay to fall down and scrape your knees and break your arms and do all the things, right? They don't do that. So they have no capacity to even understand that things are going to be hard. Right.
Yeah, and like this is kind of a parenting podcast, and I guess to that point too is as parents, mothers, and fathers, or even just general caregivers, is really to teach the next generation, our children, like the capacity with our nervous system.
Mm.
And there's more and more stuff coming out, with breath
Yes.
work and like,
Yes.
what we should be, quote unquote, should be, teaching our kids is the capacity to hold difficult things
Yep.
Yes.
instead of like sitting our children down in front of a TV screen and like, oh, you're going to do this and then everything's going to be fine. And it's
Right.
just not, that's just not reality. And so I think it
Right.
really takes a very conscious parent, an individual to be like, okay, we don't really know where our soul is going. How can we build capacity in this moment today when,
Right.
there's a bully at school or something didn't go our way? How can we expand our nervous
Yes.
system in that moment instead of like bypassing it? And I think that alone would help, future generations, especially
Social emotional learning. It's one of our
Yes.
favorite things, and
Yeah.
it's so important. And it's been vilified by some folks who don't, want people to learn empathy or all of these resilient skills. But it's so important, and we really believe here that that is a vital piece of education from children from a young age, from a very young age,
Mm.
from birth, really, because it starts with not ignoring a crying baby. It starts with, picking them up and giving them the love and knowing that you can't spoil them. And then it just continues on with allowing them to learn how to emotionally regulate in a world that's going to be challenging. Even in the best of circumstances, we all have to learn how to deal with our
Mhm.
challenges and how to come from this heart-centered place where we take a breath and we look at our values, as they age and they're more able to understand more what are my values, how do I respond from a place of centeredness, of what's in alignment with what I believe. And that's some of the most important work. It's well beyond and much more fundamental than grades and college and first jobs and all these other things that capitalism tells us are important. And it's how to be a human, how to show up as a human on the planet so that you're not causing more stress to others, but you're part of the solution. You're part of uplifting a society that can work together and a world that works for everyone.
yeah, that is how abuse stops with us
Mm,
and healing starts with
yes.
us, to raising our
Yeah.
kids, our children at a very young age, from birth on, of like, how are we treating them? Are we
Yeah.
raising sociopaths, or are we raising soul conscious individuals? And I'll
Yes.
just say this about parenting, like, we can get into a little bit of my story because it's quite deep, but the first 4 years of my son's life, he lived exclusively with me. We co-slept, right beside each other for every single nap, every single
Mhm.
night. I think I added up in those 4 years, it's like 1,400 hours of literally just bonding with me. And I'm
Mm,
so glad that,
yes.
I'm so glad we had that time, that at
Yeah.
least he had those 4 years with his mother, who
Yes.
loves, still loves him dearly, but he had that bond. And I was always very conscious, like if he wanted to cry, he could cry. I was just like, how can I help you? I'm not, and especially with like boys, of letting them express their
Yes.
emotions.
Yes.
Yes, please.
And instead of just like, boys aren't supposed to cry. And instead of
Yeah.
saying, and even being very conscientious of my language of like, shh, when they're crying, it's just like letting it happen. And what's arising in me when my child is crying? Of course, this is, many
Hmm.
years ago, but what is being activated in me? Like, is it a control issue? Like, children are mirrors
Mm,
back to us of like, what do I need to work on?
Absolutely.
Why is this triggering me? And even just
yes.
like, why am I telling my baby to be shh? Like, that is a subtle cue that could affect them, that will affect them later on in life. And so really being mindful of the language we use and
Yeah.
just the habitual conditioning that has been passed down from generations.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can go so many deep on so many different practices that are still occurring in
Yeah.
Yes.
parenting, that are quite, I guess, quote unquote, controversial. To me, it's just basic child honoring practices. We need to honor
Yes.
autonomy of our children.
And just
Yes.
to
And
state for anyone who's having resistance to what you're saying, who's saying, "Oh, come on," this is when the brain, the whole person is really starting to grow. It is way more important than you realize. And so all these things from in utero, inside the belly, to birth and those first few years, but seriously, all the way up to 25, their brains are still forming. This is the time when they're being so affected, and they're cooking, like they're creating who they're going to be. So like all of these things that you want to say, no big deal, they are a big deal. They're all a big deal. So to be so aware and mindful as a mom, well done. That was not in my consciousness when my kids were little. And, again, we talk about this all the time. I did the best I could, but I love the new awareness of how important, and, I know it wasn't new for everyone. There were people who knew this, but now it's becoming more mainstream to understand all of these things and how important they are on the development of this human being that's your baby, but that they're their own person, but you're the one who's charged with their care and helping them develop. So every little thing from shushing to, or trying to tell them don't cry, or be a big boy, or any of these messages that we're just we all have heard, we all know, shifting it to something better, something more nurturing, that's going to help them grow into these amazing like souls that the world needs right now. So
right. But I guess like I'm such an adamant on like sleep and children and like sleep training, and that is definitely a topic I talk a lot about because it's just not biological. And I have a picture that I actually just came across this morning of a family of elephants.
Oh,
they're hopefully it's not AI. I don't think it was, but I mean, you can
describe it for anyone who's just listening.
Yeah. So it's a family of elephants, the mama and the daddy, they're all laying down, like kind of like snuggled up against each other. It's a beautiful photo.
Yes.
And I always, kind of guide other people, like, look at nature. Do you see a mama bird kicking her baby bird out of the nest into a dark, isolated, another tree away from her?
Right.
Symbolizing, are we putting our baby that we just grew, for mothers that we just grew and gave birth to for, 10 months, we're just going to stick them in a crib in a dark room and expect them to sleep? Like, it's so unbiological. And then we wonder why our kids have sleep issues. And then we wonder why they have attachment issues. And then even in adults, it's like, well, what's happening with your sleep? You didn't have that, like that healthy attachment when you were a baby, like in your most, primal biological requirement state. So that is just a topic I could jam out on for a very long time. But and America is a little different than other countries, but sleeping with our own is so important. It's just biological. Look at nature. A mama bear cub, or whatever. So
So now, is it true that you're not connected with your child anymore?
Yes and no. So the father of my child, we were in a very domestic abusive relationship. We were not legally married, by choice. And I had a little boy in April of 2018, and the abuse really escalated from that point. A month into postpartum, he attempted, I would just say, he attempted to take out a life insurance policy on me and my 1 month old. So that's the kind of individual that we are dealing with. And I was the stay-at-home mom. He was the sole breadwinner from our family. So people can connect the dots at that point. And the abuse just escalated from there. I mean, it was quite horrific. He finally walked out on us when my son was 7 months old. Changed the locks in the house, got on the plane, didn't tell me where he was going, when he was going to come back, drained our joint checking account, then closed it, took the car away that he had given me, all within a matter of days, and then took me to court for custody and child support. My world that was the beginning of this chapter. I am still currently walking. He had a lot of money, got attorneys. We came into a stipulation about a year later. He still refused to pay child support that he went to court for, because he was the petitioner. I was always the respondent. I don't co-parent with the government. I would have never taken him to court.
Hey, we just wanted to take a quick moment to tell you about something very exciting that Debbie and I and our team have been working on for literally years. And that is our Cour Tools app, which is now available at the Google Play Store and at the Apple Store. And you can Sign up for it now, and you will get access to all the tools we've been talking about on the podcast.
And if you're an early adopter of Cour tools, you can get a VIP price for $49 for a lifetime. That's
Lifetime.
right.
Buy it once, and we'll keep updating it too.
Yes. So we're super excited about this. Go to Apple Store, go to Google Play, and purchase it now.
Cour tools, COUR, capital TOOLS.
Go get it.
For whatever reason, this is what my soul's path chose. So here we are. And kind of fast forward to February 2022, the first two judges on this case recused themselves. So also giving the listeners of like a little background, like I was calling out the corruption and the whole family court system to include CPS and foster care and even medical kidnapping. It is a child trafficking system. And that just simply, so people think child trafficking is just children coming over from the Mexico border. It is not. Trafficking is happening in your local town and city on a daily basis. Children are being exchanged for money. Even in even in a 50-50 case, child support, like I can go down that rabbit hole all day long. It's too long for this podcast, but it's a child trafficking system. It's an 80 billion a year industry. So I was calling out, I filed a federal lawsuit all on my own with no attorneys. I was calling out the corruption, really the atrocities that are happening to families and children on a daily basis. I was a threat to the establishment. They did not like that. So the first two judges recused themselves. A third judge got on the case, and my ex alleged that I did not show up to a visitation that morning. I had two witnesses there. He was notified that I was en route with the baby. My son was sleeping, so that's why we were late. It was like an 8 a.m. visit call. Again, this judge had no idea of the previous 4 years of domestic violence. Egregious on so many levels. And the petitioner, the ex, the father of my child, went to his attorney and said, oh, she didn't show up to her visit. And so his attorney had, should we say, some power and control issues and just power and control in general, and filed an ex parte, which again is it's a violation of due process basic rights. So ex parte is behind your back. There's no evidence. It's just their word. And the judge, there's no evidence. There's no hearing. There's no witnesses. And she wrote that I failed to show up to the visit, which was not true. I had witnesses, and that he should suddenly have sole legal and physical custody, even though he lived 1,200 miles away in a different state. And this child had lived with me his entire life. Wow. And the judge signed.
My heart is breaking.
Order.
Oh, my heart.
It will get emotional because the story continues. And again, I was forced to keep my son safe. My hand was forced so many times, and it really, I guess, kind of continues to, and kept myself safe, kept my baby safe. And the following week we had a Zoom hearing for this ex parte motion, and his attorney goes, and the mother won't bend her knee. You as a listener, you can interpret however that meant, but she said this on record, and the mother won't bend her knee. I interpret that to mean we are beating her to pulp, and this is not about custody. We're going to teach her that our power and control is greater than biological human rights of a mother and a child.
And this is in Colorado?
This is in a different state.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
for privacy reasons, I'm not naming the state.
No.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, wow.
I mean, it's. This will be a movie. This will be a documentary for sure for what me and my baby have gone through. And I say my baby, he's going to be almost 7, but as mothers, they're always our babies, right?
Yes, right.
So my child. And then she further verbally motioned the court, the judge at that time. I ordered the mother within, I think it was 3 or 4 days, to turn over the child as if my child was a suitcase, as a possession, not as a child who was integrated with his community, with his mother. Like he didn't go to preschool. Like he was with me. I was just, it will always probably be very difficult to talk about.
Yeah.
And
you're just doing your best to keep him safe. Right.
The number one issue was to keep him safe.
Yes.
Because of the father's habitual behavior, not only to me, but his previous wife, business partners. There were so many stories that he is not a safe person. And unfortunately, the system doesn't take mothers seriously. And I could get into all of that. Anyway, at the hearing, so she needs to, turn over the child to law enforcement CPS. And if she doesn't, we're going to file for default judgment. And what that means is she can write anything on a piece of paper and the judge will sign it. As a protective mother who cared deeply about her son, just biologically, what mother would ever turn over her child willingly? I mean, it's impossible. You ask any sane mother, like,
yes,
it's not even a choice. I'm just going to turn my child over. I haven't done a thing.
right.
There's
especially
no
knowing who you're turning him over to, right?
Right. And again, this is why I say this is the part of the movie. My child was trafficked. It's a trafficking situation. That's all this was. There was no allegations of abuse or unfitness or, there was none of that. It was just strictly, she won't bend her knee and we're going to force her hand. And so I stayed the course, and his attorney had some connections, and they filed. I obviously did not turn my child over. There was just absolutely no way that would, I don't think, that could have never happened. I just, ask 1,000 protective mothers. I would have never turned you just can't. It would be impossible to.
It goes against the mothering instinct. It goes against everything that comes with being a mom.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and it really just breaks my heart further, because I was just such, I am a good mother. Like everybody knew that. And even the father of my child knew that too. He even posted on Facebook, what a great mother I was, and how many mothers look up to me, and just conscientious and health conscious and just educated and all of those things. And so they filed for default judgment. And at the same time they did that, she had connections, and they started a criminal case against me immediately. And this should have never happened. And this is why I was actually on a podcast yesterday, and we'll see where we get on some of the egregious things that have gone down in this particular case in this particular state, because something is up. And they filed for default judgment, giving him sole legal custody, even though he barely saw the child in those 4 years. And I pay him child support. And I kept us safe for about 2 months. And then we are changing safe houses. We were at a playground for 3 hours. I'm so glad we had that one last memory, because what happens next gets even worse. We played at the playground in the sun for 3 hours, and he was running and happy. He had, this beautiful blonde curly hair. I had never taken scissors to it. He was just such a happy, healthy, thriving child. And as we were driving back to the safe house, lights turned on behind us. It was a cop car. And I knew right then it was over. They had a felony warrant out for me for quote unquote custodial interference, which basically just means protective mom is not complying. That's really, they pulled us over, yanked me out of the car. And my little boy, he just turned 4 years old. He is screaming, "Give me my mama back. Give me my mother back."
Oh my
and
God.
that was the last time I saw him in almost 3 years.
Oh,
And
story.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
yeah. So I was carted off to jail, and I don't even have a driving infraction on my record. I don't drink coffee. I don't drink alcohol. It was such a foreign environment to me. Talk about hitting rock bottom. This was it was below rock bottom. I don't even know what you call this. It was below ashes. things were just I spent all my life. I lost my business. I lost my driver's license. I lost my freedom. My son, who had spent almost every single hour with me for his entire life, was just literally ripped out of my arms.
Yeah.
And I was in jail 130 days, finally got on a plea deal. And that, as of this recording, that criminal chapter is soon to be closed, which is going to be great. It was a withheld judgment, so it'll be off my record. And since I was released from jail, I've really been on this path of, like, okay, what is going on? A fracture this big has to have my attention. I cannot ignore whatever I've been ignoring or whatever, like something, maybe I haven't ignored something, but maybe something is trying to be birthed through me. And so, for the past,
Yes.
2.5+ years, I have, been on an intense healing journey and healing.
Mhm.
I use the word healing, but it's so much more than that. It's been a very dark journey.
Oh,
I
yeah.
will let the listeners know that I have seen my son. I found out where he was. And there was no contact with me and my son even against court order. We were supposed to have contact, and the father was prohibiting it. So we are still in active litigation. He is not the same boy as he was, of course. I mean, he's gone through so much trauma and told absolutely lies about me. Like, I'm not his mother. There's another mother replacing me. I mean, and so this is why I'm kind of passionate. One of the things I'm passionate about is, like, we've got to do better as parents, fathers and
Yes.
mothers. Stop. We need to cease our war on Mother Earth, like, mothers are
Yeah.
not the enemy. And
No.
it's a very sacred union, especially those early years. And it's not to say that fathers are not important. That's not the topic of this
No.
conversation.
No.
It's
Right.
that when you break a bond between a mother and a child, because mothers carry children biologically and give birth to them, when that bond is broken, it just sets up an abuse trauma cycle for
Yep.
generations.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
fathers need to heal, mothers need to heal. And that's why, abuse trauma stops with us and healing starts with us.
Yes.
So I've seen him, in person one time in the last 3 years. It has been the most horrific journey. I would have never imagined that I'm sitting here saying this to you, but
Yeah.
here we are.
Right.
Here we are.
Yeah.
And, I still have, very tough days and, lots of tears, lots of grief
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that we will never get back those memories. And even the memories that we did have are so bittersweet. He was just such a happy boy.
Yeah.
And I'm doing my best to turn this story into something good for the highest good of
Right.
all, and really start a movement and get this movement, momentum
Yeah.
to, really stop weaponizing motherhood. We need to
Yeah.
bring families and community together. Mothers are to be honored and treasured and respected, and fathers are
Yes.
too. But this is, from a
Yes.
mother's perspective, again, it's just
Yeah.
it's such a
Well,
valuable topic. And you just look,
yeah.
like, even, besides biological mothers, but look how we were treating Mother Earth,
Yes. Yeah.
same
Mothers are
thing for
getting
the
the shit
feminine.
kicked out of them right now. Let's just moms,
Yeah.
women, like, right? Like, it's just the
It's a tough time.
sign of the times right now, right? And so
Yeah.
we are right there with you, like, knowing the hopefully this is rising up so it can be healed, is what Marci and I would
Absolutely.
say,
Yeah.
right? And so hopefully that's the case with you too.
Yeah. We've had a number of guests on, and I don't know that we've set out to talk about it that often, but it comes up. So I know it's coming up, just like Debbie said, to be healed. But the whole system of divorce, separations, the family, like, we understand, we're learning more and more. And we've both kind of been through some of this too, Debbie more so than I, but the system is broken. The system is not serving anyone, certainly not the children, but it's not serving the parents either, mothers or fathers, because it's adversarial. We had some family lawyers on a month or two ago. So
In New Jersey.
adversarial, and
Yeah.
it's so, I'm going to win, I'm going to show you, which is so bizarre, so out of place in a family. When two people bring a child, or three people, or however many, there's all kinds of relations up there. When you bring a child into the world, it's such a sacred bond, and it needs all the attention, all the purpose, and the number one priority needs to be the health and mental, physical, emotional of the child, of all class. And when we get into this adversarial power over, it just hurts everyone. So we know that this is a system that is ready for a lot of healing, which
Yes.
we're knowing is set into process at a time when the whole world, just all the
Yeah.
systems are needing this healing. But what I love, I feel for you so much, but what I love is that you're making this choice of, you've been through this incredible trauma, your child's been through it, which is worse. But you're making a choice. How am I going to turn this tragedy into something? How am I going to
Yeah.
uplift? And that is so important. And I'd love to hear more about what you're doing with that, how you're taking that tragedy, that trauma, and turning it into something that's going to help others on the planet.
I will say that is a work in progress. Every day I kind of get like new ideas,
Mhm,
new offerings, or just new ways, methods, or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I have come up with some of my own methods
mhm,
through, I don't see how I couldn't, through this process. One of them, I've kind of created my own writing method that I now, I've turned into a product of really, teaching other people of like, okay, this is, if it works for me, I know it can help somebody else. So,
mhm,
Yeah.
that is one way, and just really have taken so many different tools that have been, taught to me. Now I'm teaching them to others.
Yes.
And, really, I think my perspective on what has happened to me, and then also on a global scale too, of like, okay, how can I take my story and really massively use it for some positive change?
Yes.
And like, I guess one of my goals is to abolish the family court system. And that is a huge task. It's a
Wow.
capitalist,
Oh
system. They
yeah.
don't want that, they don't want that
mm,
gone. It's a moneymaker.
Oh
And
yeah.
so,
You bet it is.
like, yeah, I mean, it's 80 billion a year industry. And
Yeah.
so,
mm.
teaching and also practicing forgiveness, and it's more
Mhm.
from a spiritual perspective than
Yes.
like a religious perspective.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So kind of
Well,
like
and
spiritual psychology.
forgiving
Mhm.
yourself, right? Not necessarily. It'd be
Right.
pretty hard pressed to be forgiving those right now who are beating the crap out of you, but to forgive yourself, and that's a journey. I was just having a conversation with Marci that I'm still on. Right, I'm 60 some years old. I don't know that that goes away. Maybe in this lifetime, but maybe on my deathbed. That's what I'm thinking. But it's a process. It is a process, right? And but just to
Yeah.
give yourself grace through it is sometimes just the best you can do.
Right. And I think, back to, I guess, Marcy's, kind of previous question, just sharing my story. Like the
Mhm.
Yes.
system really wanted me silenced. I mean, literally, I
Yep.
was under lock and key. No
Yeah.
pun intended.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
They wanted me silenced. And I know that, like, every time I kind of am feeling down and dark and just like, I miss my baby,
Yes.
like, I'm gonna try not to, cry right now. It's okay to
Mhm.
cry, but I'm gonna keep it
Yes.
together. Like, looking at, photos of us, it is just
Yeah.
heartbreaking. And
Yeah.
so I keep reminding myself of how far I've come in these last 3 years. I have my
Yes.
driver's license, I have the car again, like I'm kind of rebuilding, my business and life, like I'm rebuilding
Yeah.
everything. I have clothes again.
Yeah.
I have colored pens. Like when you're like, again, this is, like I never knew what jail was until I was there, and I was like, "I'm never going to take color for granted. I'm never gonna use the,
Ugh.
like a black."
Yeah.
You couldn't even have a pen. You couldn't even have like a pencil because somebody could use it as a weapon. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like it was so foreign to me. Like I'm still
Yeah.
kind of in shock over that
The
experience.
brutality of that, that's a whole nother
Yeah.
topic to throw
Level
people
of
into such a
PTSD.
brutal
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Right. And I mean, like I was trafficked. When they arrested me, I didn't even have ID on me. And it
mm,
was funny, I was arrested in a different state, and so they had to extradite me back to like the original state.
Hmm.
And we were in the airport. I just say this because this is very like just to I think people think the word trafficking is just, it's like it's a thought, but they don't realize it's happening on a daily basis. So
Yeah.
anyway, I was in the restroom, in handcuffs, trying to use the toilet, and the
mhm.
female officer is there in the back of this stall, like she's in the stall with me. And then the
Hmm.
back
Oh
of
my
the
gosh.
stall, it was like, 6 ways to spot human trafficking. And I
Yes.
literally looked at her and I said, replace the word boyfriend with government, and what are you doing? And she looked at me, she was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I didn't have money on me. I didn't have ID on me. I was handcuffed. I was being trafficked. That's definition.
Mm,
Wow.
And so like, like this is, it's kind of the nitty gritty of the story. And like, even when I kind of come to terms with like, oh my gosh, just like that humanity, there's no humanity in the system.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
what they did to my son, there was no
No.
care and compassion, just ripping, like, anyway,
Yes.
I won't.
And that is such a huge issue right now is we are losing our humanity, and
Yes.
there's no good that can come from that. That is devastating that here in
Yeah.
2025 that we're looking at this in with anyone, but not just but with lots of people and mothers and children. It's heartbreaking.
Oh my gosh, this story, I'm gonna sit down
Yeah,
and have a little bawling session when we're all done here. I'm just gonna say, Sarah, or excuse me, Hope, Rose, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but man, do I want to stay in touch with you.
yeah,
I want to hear your progress. I want you to let us know how we might help you. We're moms, and
yeah.
moms help moms. And man, this is a big story, and you should hold your head high right now and just continue to walk through it. And
Yeah. Can you
wow.
take a moment and share how people can learn more? So your business now with this with your coaching, to give some information about that, and then just how people can find out to follow you to find out more about what you're doing.
Yeah, so they can follow me. I typically hang out social media on Instagram, kind of like that platform. So it's at Hope Rose Speaks, and that handle is across the social media platform. So it's easy to find me on that. My
Hmm.
podcast is A Transformed Life, and I do offer free coaching sessions for the podcast. I love
Hmm.
that kind of podcast
Yeah.
style of like, if you are going through anything, I would be happy to kind of walk you through whatever it is and untangle it and have that aired on the show, and it's just audio, so that no video. We can change your name. So I want to
Yeah.
offer that, like that free resource if anybody would like
Mm.
it. And then yeah, my
Wow.
website's Hope Rose Speaks, and there's some offers on there. And then the other website is wehealthyself.com. And
Okay.
that is a new project I've been working on, but it guides people to build one healthy habit every month in a very simple manner. So those are some places to
I
check me
love
out on.
that. I love
Wow.
that one step at a time approach is phenomenal. We're going to
Yeah.
share all those links on the show notes in case you didn't catch them. But thank you so much, Hope Rose.
Yeah.
It's been a challenging conversation, but
Yeah. Thank
we're
you for
we're very
your,
glad you were here to share your
yeah.
story.
Thank you for your
Yeah, thank you.
vulnerability.
Yeah, it's real life, and
Hmm.
a lot of, like, I've been working through shame, and I know a lot of people suffer through shame, go through it.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
again, kind of, that Hope Rose lighthouse of like, I am
Yeah.
sharing this story to give others the courage to like share their story, maybe not
Yep.
publicly, but to a friend, and like be okay
Yeah.
with it.
Yep.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of I guess the lighthouse leading the charge.
Yes.
We
Yes.
appreciate that. That's needed in
Yeah.
the world right now.
Yeah.
Got to walk through it.
Yeah.
We got to go through it, and but we're not alone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate it.
Hey, warrior moms. As we started this podcast, we had determined that part of what we were going to do is to create a community. So we have decided to take it to another level, and we have started our own Facebook community in addition to the Warrior Parent podcast, and it's called
From Chaos to Calm, a sanctuary for moms. Here's what it looks like. It's on Facebook right now. Please go and join it. And just to let you know, we're going to create our Blue Sky accounts right now. We're getting prepared as we watch this weird stuff go on in America. So we may be shifting the whole group to Blue Sky. Just be aware that we got you. You're going to start here. If this turns out to be not a safe place anymore on Facebook, then we will shift over. But what we're creating is a safe space where moms can show up and get information, get support, talk to each other about the things you're going through with your kids, the things you went through with your kids, maybe get some advice from moms, but also other experts. We're going to invite all of our guests and experts to join the group. I hope you will too. This is a place where you can show up and be seen and be heard and be safe. Mom's got you.
Nobody Trusts anyone more than moms. So let's do this.
And now for your core mental health break. This is your opportunity to take a moment to support your mental wellness, your peace of mind, your own ease and grace. Take some time every day to support your mental health. You deserve it, and it matters.
Now let's try some bilateral tapping. Just cross your hands over your chest and place them on your shoulders, in the front of your shoulders. And then slowly, consciously tap one side, then the other. Left, right, left, right. You can tap with your feet if you prefer that, over your hands. This is calming your nervous system, bringing you back to a place of center. A simple technique you can do anytime. Thank you for pausing for yourself today. Your mental health is important, and you deserve peace, calm, and ease in your life every day. So please choose to receive it. It is always available right at your center, your heart, your core. Stay well, friends.
Thanks for listening to the Warrior Parent Podcast, which is a production of our nonprofit, Cour Experience, who also creates and distributes Cour tools. You can find us at courexperience.org. Make sure you join us next week for another informative conversation to help you and your family show up mindfully, purposefully, and joyfully with each other and in your community.
Our Cour Tools platform consists of a number of proven tools and techniques that are designed to reduce stress, anxiety, and overwhelm in spite of what's going on in your world. We want to thank Samuel Hale, LLC, for sponsoring this podcast. Technical and marketing support comes from Inspire Your Brand. Our podcast editor is Justin Beeden. Opinions expressed by guests do not necessarily reflect those of the hosts, the producers, or the financial supporters. I'm Debbie DeMano.
And I'm Marci Mitchell. Thanks for listening. If you resonate with the idea of creating a community to help support kids and families, won't you join us by following the podcast and sharing this episode? You can even write a review. It truly does take a village, and we appreciate you.